Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another of Mr. J's virtual field trips. Today we're going to be talking about the Smithsonian Institute, America's Attic. The Smithsonian keeps everything of importance from cultural to historical events. The Smithsonian Museums are the most widely visible part of the United States Smithsonian Institute and consist of 20 museums and galleries. You can see everything from a 52-foot long model of a female megatooth shark to the actual jaws of a megalodon. Also in the National Museum of Natural History, you can see the skeleton of an ancient whale. But there is more to see than the Museum of Natural History. You can also see America's treasures, including the Hope Diamond, America's cursed diamond, which weighed 45.52 carats and is estimated value of over $300 million. Also, American history. This is the actual flag flying over the fort that inspired Francis Scott Key to write the national anthem. Not just history, but culture, including our superhero culture. Even superheroes make it into the Smithsonian. Superman from the 50s TV show, Captain America and S.H.I.E.L.D. from the Winter Soldier, and Storm's outfit from the original X-Men movie. Not to mention America's fine art is displayed at the National Gallery. What is so fascinating about the Smithsonian Institute museums is you actually get to see the actual machines that made history. This is the actual 1903 Wright Flyer. This is actually Abraham Lincoln's top hat. And from the newest museum, the National Museum of African Art, African American art. And as I said, folks, our culture, our youth, our growing up is on display at the Smithsonian Institute. Kermit the Frog puppet at the National Museum of American History. And Kermit the Frog is not the only Muppet on display. Can you guess who else? Well, let's look at Oscar the Grouch and Miss Piggy. What other cultural artifacts do we have? Well, we have the ruby slippers from the Wizard of Oz. Sorry, folks, got a little tongue-tied there. Muhammad Ali, the only three-time heavyweight champion of the world's robe and gloves. One of Hank Aaron's professional jerseys. Kobe Bryant's LA uniform is on display at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. A 1926 New York Yankees autograph ball with many legends, including Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, and a total of 8 Hall of Fame members. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you learn, Mr. J, you know I love Star Trek. And the actual screen use model, the original screen use model of the USS Enterprise, NCC 1701, is on display at the National Air and Space Museum. Star Trek aired originally from 1966 to 1969. Now, some of you are going to sit there and say, Mr. J, I am a Star Wars fan, not Star Trek. Well, we got you covered. C-3PO and many other artifacts from Star Wars are on display at the Smithsonian Institute. Not to mention historical aircraft like the B-29 Enola Gay, the aircraft which actually dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. The Apollo 11 command module, which carried Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins to the moon and back. Amelia Earhart's Lockheed Vega. We don't keep female explorers out. Is on display at the National Museum of Air and Space. Not to mention Ryan Aircraft's The Spirit of St. Louis. Even modern aircraft like the Space Shuttle Endeavour and the SR-71 are on display at the Udvar-Hazy Air and Space Museum. But it's not just technological advancements. We also study early man at the Natural Museum of Natural History. The Smithsonian American Gallery displays many fine pieces of American art, including 42nd Street and Nocturne. Going to church. Chirubo Obato Mano Crater. Now, folks, if I mispronounce that, I'm sorry. Also, Mark Bradford's Amendment 8. But, folks, it is not just a warehouse of art and trinkets and treasures. It also displays effects of cultural significance, like the lunch counter at the Woolworths in Greensboro, North Carolina, where the sit-in took place. Now, at the time, it was segregated. African Americans could not stay at the lunch counter, but they did. They were abused, they were spat upon, they had hot coffee poured on them, and they stayed there until the publicity got so bad that they were forced to segregate. Folks, a lot of people nowadays don't realize that even baseball was segregated. And this is a poster for the Negro League baseball game. Baseball did not start to integrate until 1947. Folks, here's one of the most decorated units in American history, yet they are sadly underrated. This is the 369th Harlem Hellfighters, a regiment of the New York National Guard. A Medal of Honor was awarded to Henry Johnson from this unit. They stayed in combat longer than any other American unit because they were given to the French. The French didn't have a problem using black troops. Americans apparently did. Ladies and gentlemen, entertainment is represented at the National Museum of American History. We have Prince's Yellow Cloud guitar. But not just artifacts, pictures as well. The National Portrait Gallery, we have villains, rogues, and famous people. Al Capone's portrait is on display at the National Portrait Gallery. George Washington, America's first president, is on display at the National Portrait Gallery. Bill and Melinda Gates on display at the National Portrait Gallery. And ladies and gentlemen, so many others. From Marilyn Monroe, Kurt Cobain, Dr. Martin Luther King, the Williams sisters. Sorry, I do not know who that other one is off the top of my head. Folks, Henry Johnson in the event which won him the Medal of Honor. The Rosenbergs, convicted for selling atomic bomb secrets to the Russians and executed. The Teflon Don, John Gotti, and Darth Vader, also on display in the National Portrait Gallery. Now, folks, this is just a very short, very brief introduction to the Smithsonian Institute Museums. Let's look at the museum and everything they hold. There are 155.5 million artifacts, works of art, and specimens in the Smithsonian collection. There are 146 million of these specimen artifacts are held by the National Museum of Natural History. There are 2.2 million library volumes held by the Smithsonian libraries, and they cover over 163.3 thousand cubic feet of archival material held by archives across the Smithsonian. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Smithsonian Museum, the Smithsonian Institute, is a gift to the American people. The cost for visiting and seeing these priceless artifacts and specimens is zero. There is no cost. Now, there's cost if you go to the gift shops, and there's cost if you go to the food courts, but to get in there and view all this history cost nothing. Folks, please tell me if you like this. If you do, I'll create more virtual field trips. If not, well, I'll think about some other things. Thank you and have a great day.